Welcome to Under the Fringe. We are your hosts, Andy Yablonsky and Julie Babin, two interior designers with almost 50 years of combined experience. And while we love design, our passion has really become helping the next generation of designers struggle less, earn more, and create more freedom in their lives. We offer a whole host of support options to help you create the structures you need to really thrive and grow. More to come on that at the end of the show. All right, welcome to Under the Fringe. Today we have a very exciting guest on. Lauren Anderson from Sun Creative Company is here, and she has been my photographer for a number of years at this point. I know, Julia, you've used her
long time
friend, long time photographer, and a very prolific businesswoman, I would say. At this point, you have created multiple arms of your business that are not just photography related, and really have some new and exciting offerings and publications and things that are coming out of your space that are super helpful and wonderfully supportive to our design community. So excited to have you, Lauren. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited.
So what do you think? So, we use you for photography. We were chatting for a couple minutes right before we started recording, because you have added a video component to your services. That's been how long has that been going on now? A few years?
We're probably on like year 3 or 4 of video. Right. Yeah. But yeah, like I was saying, this year it's starting to pick up more. So we're attracting the clients that really need that service.
And how is that? I mean, I miss, like, we're all on Instagram. We all see Reels, and TikTok is all videos basically. And so it seems like that format is really the marketing generating content that we're all sort of being driven toward. Although I'm still really a fan of still photography.
Oh, yeah, I like both.
I don't think it's going anywhere.
No,
like I don't. There's still absolutely a place for that. And like, even though Pinterest really did a push at one point to get more creators on their platform, I don't think it's been terribly successful.
With all those little videos on Pinterest. I don't love that.
We worked with Pinterest and an influencer on a campaign, and it was kind of when they were first rolling out that video feature on Pinterest, and I haven't really heard of anybody really like picking it up or using it a lot. So yeah,
that makes sense. It's probably more just people who already have their little reels from their Instagram, and then they can just shove it over there. But it doesn't seem like it's taking off in that regard.
I wouldn't say in Pinterest, but I mean, obviously in Instagram and TikTok.
Well, it just goes to show that every platform has its purpose.
Exactly.
I will tell you, as far as Pinterest goes, I mean, as a designer, I use it for like all of my design content, but as consumer and a user, I am like all about gardening and recipes, and it is frustrating when I'm trying to look at a recipe and I'm like, I just want to see what the finished product is supposed to look like, and like a shot of the ingredient.
Yeah, and then or it's like a bad link to something, and which is like the worst. So I totally see that.
But that's really good to know, to recommend to designers to look into videoing, creating videos for their company as collateral. Really, it's a good investment. It sounds like it's really important.
It is, and it really depends on the angle of it. So obviously, like products, like like I was saying, we worked with a tile manufacturer, so like showing like the making of is always great content. We're working with the decorators showcase and showing like kind of before install, some like fun stuff in the middle, and then like the after part. So, and we've also done a long-term project with a designer that did 3 ground up homes. And so we followed her basically over 2 years,
Okay.
and
Cool.
created a lot of like just progress video content for her. So yeah, there's lots of fun ways to use it other than just social media, but obviously something like TikTok, which we've done a lot of content for, is its own flavor. They're all very like different flavors, I would say.
Yeah, but the point is that it's really important to invest in your marketing and for a designer, and Andy and I always want to recommend people to sort of think about it ahead of time before you start your projects, like plan to make a video, plan to do a photo shoot with Lauren. And but put that into how you create what your company needs in terms of, profit. And so we always like to bring that up in the beginning. So we love hearing like your recommendations for reasons why you should be motivated to create a video.
Yeah, and I think even I always recommend to designers, like even if it's on your phone, and like we do, we could do like a fun art, home tour a la Architectural Digest, like at the end, like with a
Ooh, I love
photo
that.
shoot or something, and then always incorporate like home footage too. So it's like you can it's also, I would definitely still plan ahead for that and be documenting what you're doing, but
And yeah.
yeah, so it really, the end goal is, especially for video, is so important because it's not, we can't retouch out things in video. We can't, there's just certain limitations with video, and the cost is high. There's a lot of work. So if I only work with a female video team and editing team, so if our videographer Sue Bay, we've been working together for years, she's shooting for 6 hours, that's another 6 hours at least that she's going back, and so video can be a big part of a marketing budget. And I think some people had some sticker shock, I think, in the beginning, but I think just like with interior design, eventually you start attracting the right clients that see the value and have the budget to work with it.
Yeah, we always sort of have to I think the biggest thing is I just noticed designers don't think about it ahead of time. They don't think in the beginning of this project, I'm going to think about this as my marketing budget. And they kind of wait until the end, and then they think, oh, I should get a photo shoot together. And maybe they do it, maybe they don't. So I feel like helping them get organized is always a good idea.
Absolutely.
And so like understand how much a video costs, understand how much a photo shoot costs.
And I would say, like, I would preface basically everything I'm saying is just like how I've like constructed my business and what like I feel like works for me and my clients. So I would also say, like, photographers differ very widely.
Really do. Their pricing is so different.
The pricing and licensing, and we can talk about all that stuff. So I'll just say I'm just talking from my perspective and what I feel like works for me, and what makes my clients happy too.
That's an even better point, because Lauren did such a good job of creating a very easy to work with pricing structure, and I have seen so many photographers do it so different than you do, Lauren, and yours is such a service to like so helpful the way you do it. And so it's a good point, like be careful before you start working with a photographer, really understand what they're, because the one thing that always for me that's difficult that I've seen to avoid is when they sort of only like it's sort of per photo.
Yeah.
That seems really difficult to work with.
And I've had several clients come to me with that experience, and it's like I had to pay thousands of dollars for like 15 photos, and like they were like, and it's different if you're paying that and they're like Architectural Digest, it's like if you feel like it's the right level. But I've had so many people come to me that are like, I paid all this money for this shoot and I didn't really get what I wanted out of it.
Mhm.
So that's
Yes.
always like a red flag for me.
Yeah.
I mean, we have clients that have said similar things that like, I'm paying all this money, and I don't think I'm getting what I want. But
Right.
in our case, there are decisions that have to be made in order for that client to get what they want. Either, you know, based on feedback and other things. And I know, having worked with you in the past, like you work really fast, but there's always an opportunity for me to look at a photo,
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
move on to the next space.
Yeah. What's
right?
it called where the laptop is connected?
you're tethered.
Tethered. Yeah. Someone
Yeah.
was talking about that and how she had to request that the photographer tethers.
I think
Whereas
if
like
you're,
Lauren just automatically does it, which we are so grateful for.
well, and I think that actually should be a red flag. I feel
Yeah.
like, especially for interior and architecture photography,
Yeah.
if you're not able to either see it on an iPad, like wirelessly, like a lot of people are doing that, or like tethered to the laptop, I to me as a professional, that feels like a red flag.
Mhm.
Because then that's when you get into a situation where you deliver something to your client and they're like, this is not what I wanted. And it, you know, a photo shoot, you can't just go back and redo it.
It could be a sign that that photographer is not necessarily interior design based.
Yeah. And that happens a lot if you hire like a real estate photographer for
Oh, yeah,
an
yeah.
interior design shoot, which I hear a lot.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And the reason why I always fight for a interior design photographer like Lauren is because sometimes the client will want to bring in, or a real estate person will want to bring in a photographer, and usually for designers you're not going to want to go that route. There is a big difference between those type of photos.
Yeah, the real estate will have all the lights on and do, you know, that the really large like bracketing HDR
Fisheye.
look, fisheye, you know, kind of shooting like fisheye from the corner. So I can usually
Ugh.
tell when I look at a designer's site if they've used, you know, what kind of photographer they've used. And I would say definitely if they're not tethering where you can preview things on the spot, that's not good.
Yeah.
Not worth the money, I think, and the time and the energy that a designer puts into styling and like making a place shoot ready. Like don't waste your time and money on it.
I still don't understand the purpose of those type of photographs. Those really wide ones. But I know they're trying to sell the building. I get it. It's the real estate. But I'm like, but this doesn't even make the building look good.
I know. The racket.
But I wanted to ask you, Lauren, because Andy and I, you know, we coach designers on their businesses, and you know, it's always a little bit of a challenge as a designer to just go ahead and get the styling done and get the accessorizing done. Usually designers are very focused on the rugs and the sofas and the draperies and the wallpapers and chandeliers. But then that other layer that I totally think changes a photograph.
Yep.
You know, some people will just naturally like doing it, so they do it for their projects, and some people it really just never happens, and it's a little bit of a problem. And like, are there certain like photography maybe tricks or something, like, you know, always get branches for this, you know, when you need height, or just things that we could share with them? Because as a photographer, I think you look at objects a little differently than we do.
I do remember one time you saying, I hate hydrangeas.
Yeah, exactly. Stuff like that. You
As
did
I
that to me too.
always
You were
say,
like,
I have-
no, you were like, no eucalyptus or something.
No more eucalyptus. I am now on
Really?
the no eucalyptus bandwagon. I've reformed
no hydrangeas.
to certain colors of hydrangeas.
Oh, see, I love hydrangeas. When you said that, I was
Eucalyptus is out. Eucalyptus is done.
no, yeah, I remember Lauren's coached me a few times, like, no. Get rid of that. Don't,
Okay, I think
we're
it's
not
a
putting
fabulous
in the
question.
shot.
So like, what else, what are like the must-haves at a bare minimum that a designer
Yeah.
would need to bring in if they didn't pay for, because I know you offer styling services through your company.
Yeah.
So that would be one option. If they're not great at styling, they can hire a stylist via you or someone else.
You bring it in.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Option two would be that they're doing it themselves, but if they're not that skilled, I think Julie's question is great. Like what do we need to know in order to make our photos look as
Mhm.
fabulous as possible?
I think the biggest difference you can make is with florals and plants.
Yeah.
And so if you're not going to bring in a stylist, it really would be it going to and not using Trader Joe's or Whole Foods, like going
Yeah.
to San Jose Flower Market, Oakland Flower Market, San Francisco Flower Market. I
Yeah.
recommend San Francisco over anything, but locally, but yeah. So really unique florals.
Mhm.
Yep.
Not something you're going to find at the grocery store is, I think, a huge one. And also plants. So bringing in those pops of green that can easily be put in like a basket or something that, you know, a container, like, you know, herbs in a kitchen, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you don't realize it, but somehow it softens your eye. Like it just might be on the counter or an island, like you said, in a kitchen, and you might not think that you need something there, but you just do.
Yep. And you know, in a powder
pretty
room, it's like you
easy.
just need you need like a few like beautiful sculptural, you know, peonies or you
Mhm.
know,
A little something.
poppies or yeah, just something, and you know, that can like really elevate and bring out the, you know, stone that's in the slab or the wallpaper, things like that. So
And I try to remember like
yeah.
every night, well, not every nightstand, but like remember your nightstands, your bathroom counters, that
Yeah.
little spot in the kitchen, and just think, I just need a little vessel for this. And I try to like have containers.
Yeah.
And really, sometimes you just throw a couple of stems of flowers in there, and it really, really helps the photography.
Yeah, and like a kind of my favorite thing now is especially in like large, you know, double sinks like primary bathrooms and things like that. You know, it's most of the I feel like photo styling is taking away like 90% of what's there, and you know, just putting like a few things back, and it just makes your eye like you're not unless it's like a maximalist style, it's like it just lets your eye like rest and like see
Yeah.
the like the stone and the hardware, which is like really for an interior designer is like what you want clients to see. And then we do like a bit if we like a big floral in like the center of a primary bathroom is like perfect like that. And then you put like you know, a beautiful soap on one side and a hand towel on the other, and like you're done. So I mean, it doesn't need to be, it just needs to be thoughtful. It doesn't need to be a lot. So I would say florals, plants first, and then yeah, and if we're talking about like coffee tables, things like that, obviously all the great books that you can get. Yeah.
Yeah, books. I think a designer could actually just have a list in their office that reminds them, like, when I'm styling a coffee table, I need a tray. I need like
Right.
3 really great books. I need, you know, da 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 da. And then I also kind of need a sculptural thing. And
Yeah.
like you could just list it out because and then you could have it in your office to remind you, I'm styling a photo shoot. I got a living room, a dining room, a kitchen, and then like a bathroom. Okay, so I need to have shampoo in the shower, a nice bath mat, and like just have it written up for yourself. And then anytime you're doing a photo shoot, you'll remember, oh, a bathroom needs X, Y, and Z. Like the island of the kitchen always needs like a bowl of something.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's
The
for me. I think
perishables.
if I reminded myself, because I think sometimes you get to the shower and you go, oh crap, I forgot, you know, like a really nice thing.
Yeah, sorry, Andy.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I'll add that like part of our what we do with styling on shoots is that I've kind of amassed this stash of, you know, I have like 3 bathroom bins that are full of different hand towels, different towels, you know, different soaps, different dishes, like
You can just,
you know, like little, and so that's also
great.
yeah, but definitely having a shot list basically room by room, and then adding your styling notes,
Like, are
what
you
need.
gonna show the dining room table with a set of, where the table settings are set out, or are you gonna show it where you have some stuff stacked on the end? And it's always really, I like to recommend that designers really think about that stuff ahead of time, because essentially it's a shopping list when you're getting
Right.
ready for a photo shoot. But the reason why I think it's good to talk about it is because as designers, we're always so busy and we're running around. We've got all these client meetings. And when you get to the point of the photo shoot, usually you don't give yourself enough time to go get the stuff and set it up. It's always a little squished in there.
Yeah, agree. I think, and that's part of what I do before any shoot. I don't necessarily do in-person walkthroughs because,
Yeah.
I don't
Too much
typically do
time.
that.
Yeah.
Too much time. And then, and that's also another thing that can be a budget hurdle too. It's like I charge for walkthroughs. But even like I always have like a pre-shoot call with clients and we walk, even if it's crappy iPhone photos, I don't care. Like
Yeah.
I've been in so many spaces, I can kind of like, I can basically get the vision from the designer and their crappy iPhone photos.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, totally.
I can get it. And so, that's when we also talk about like, does this dining room feel like more minimal? Are we just doing an arrangement? Are we doing something low? Or, like where's the light fixture in relation to the island? Because it's like, I don't want to get a big branch and like the chandelier is low and it's like,
Right.
well, we can't use that. So yeah, that's always something I talk about on our pre-shoot call with a client.
And do designers, do they jump into the photo shoot that you're also doing? Like if they want to also put themselves like on the sofa, you can include their own, what do you call that? Like a portrait, but you're in the space.
An environmental portrait. I love
that.
doing those. So I always say, if this is a project that's particularly special to you, or there's like just a really good spot that you're just like, that was kind of like encompasses your vision, like let's put you in there, let's do that.
I love that
and
idea.
it varies on whether people feel like they can be prepared enough aesthetically, for themselves aesthetically to like
get your hair done.
I work with an amazing makeup artist, but like kind of being ready for that when if you're also running around styling the shoot. So there's a balance.
And I think a lot of that is to give yourself an extra couple of days before this so that on the day of the shoot, you're getting your makeup done and you're not feeling sweaty because you've had to like create 7 flower arrangements.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say, when Lauren and I were working on the Seattle photo shoot, I was literally running around behind, and we had talked about doing, and I was at the end of like, we'd shot maybe 3 rooms at that point, and she's like, so are you still thinking about doing some portraits? And I looked in a mirror and I was like, nope.
Oh man, that is so hard. And I think that's true when you're sort of doing it without an assistant. I think that makes it just a little bit too much of a stretch.
Well, and I mean, the crazy part, that house is 6,000 plus square feet. And I went up there, 5 days early and still was styling right up until Lauren arrived, and like
not crazy.
Showed up in the, like she drove to the house on her own. I had been, gathering, collecting, and then placing, and it still felt like there wasn't enough stuff. And it's just, it's one of the
right.
Until you're, you've done it a few times. And I mean, I had, but like not to, I think, that scale, and an out of town. That was the
out of town is really hard. You're not at your normal like spots to grab stuff, and your normal, it's hard. That was an extra layer of difficulty.
Yes.
And I would say like plan for one of the rooms to just not have enough stuff, and like you're gonna need more than you think. That always seems to happen.
Yeah.
And definitely with any sort of like built-in bookcase, that the built-ins swallow every single prop.
Built-in, the shelves.
Yep.
That is so true. Yeah, really prepare yourself for shelves.
If there's a built-in moment, like in some of these beautiful San Francisco Victorians where there's the fireplace and the front living room and there's those two beautiful built-ins, you got to be prepared for a lot of props for that.
Sometimes I feel bad when someone's designing their house and working with us. And it's like, should we put some shelves here? And I just immediately think of the accessories that I'm going to have to get for the photo shoot. And I'm like, okay, let me answer this carefully, because if I do say that we should have them, they're going to have shelves and I'm going to have to style them.
I mean, the other thing that's hard is also when you have clients that are like, we love all this stuff and none of it goes together. And you're trying to make it work. And I mean, so during photo shoots, I always request that clients not be there because
Yeah,
whenever possible, right? Like
that's a great idea.
The one San Francisco shoot, the clients wanted photos of themselves in their home. And so that was something we incorporated into that piece. But and they didn't have anything. But in general, I want to be able to take clients' things down and hide them safely while we're working, and then put up my own stuff, because again, I want it like their home should feel like a reflection of them, but I also want my photo shoot to feel like a reflection of me.
Your brand.
And so
That's the difference.
Really important, because like what I would envision, and maybe like the budget somehow shrinks at the end of the project, which frequently happens. And then they may not end up buying all the accessories that you recommend, but I still want them there for the photo shoot. And so that is also a dance. And I just think that people get less hurt by the end result when they're not there seeing you take down everything that they love.
Yeah, exactly. And they just kind of make things take longer.
Yeah, it can be, a photo shoot can be feel a little invasive.
Yeah.
So I've had the gamut of kind of the homeowner like being like right here, and then like right over my shoulder, and then they're like some designers like I have a shoot coming up where the designer at the end of the project just pays for them to go to like the Proper or something for 2 nights or somewhere. And she's like, this is our like thank you, like we're doing the photo because you are, a lot of times what's personal to them is not what it's not what is personal to your design work. And so it is that like it's like taking out all their like treasures or something. Like that's how I would think of it, like, oh, you're taking out my treasures. And
the same thing is like when you're the real estate agent, they're like, okay, you need to leave when we're like walking people through the house. Well, and we do it too when we do the furniture installs. We're like, it used to be like a hard and fast rule, like the client cannot be here, like no way, Jose. And now things are different on our more modern world, and so a lot of times they'll be around, but I'm always like, oh, I wish I would have like enforced this a little bit. It's just a weird thing. They don't need to be there.
Yeah, agree. That's always ideal.
So I wanted to ask you, because so much of what we do together is for our portfolio, it's for marketing purposes. And I think for a lot of designers, one of the highest marketing purposes is publishing, right? So what are your, in your experience, what are your top recommendations for getting published? How does that work for you when you're being hired? Like what are, there's so much that goes into it. And I think it is a little bit of a mystery for a lot of designers. We've both been published when we were working with our older firms, and I've been published since on my own, but it's definitely, and I think the game has changed a lot because now you can self-publish, right? So there's so many things that go into it.
Yes, there's a lot of moving parts that go into getting published, and I hate to say it, a lot of it is just like timing and luck too. I mean, but I would say from like my perspective as a photographer, that planning stage, what you were just talking about, and being prepared styling wise, like you have to have, if you want to get published, you need to have your styling dialed in. That's a huge huge part of it, because if the coffee, like if you're trying to get into Lux and you have some like dinky branches, they're not going to take it, you know? So it's the styling, I think, is actually the most important part of the publishing part of it. And a lot of these editors expect a high level.
Yeah, which means
styling,
every
and
like art piece is also a big thing. All the art and
the art is important, and like your choice of styling and accessories is important, depending on your target publication. Like, you know, you don't have to have as much high-end art for Rue as you would for like Veranda or something like that. So, you know, kind of I always ask designers, like, what's your kind of like ideal publication? When we go into a shoot, and you know, they mention, I really want to try to get this published, I think this is a great project. And then another part is like constructing the story around the project. So what is it that's different that somebody would, you know, it can't just be like a great design, because there's a lot of really great designs out there. So it's like, what is your angle? What is your, you know, there's
why did you do this?
Right. Or like they rebuilt from like a fire or something, or, you know, there's a couple places I'm going to be shooting in Napa that are all now built in concrete because of fires. And so it's, you know, when you can kind of bring in an element, or, you know, it's this family's forever home that they really put a lot into.
Stories are great.
The story is also really important.
Yeah.
Well, it's quite funny. I was gonna say
go ahead.
About the story that when I was getting published, the editor reached out and she was like, "Can you please write the article?" And I was like, "Can I write?"
No.
Okay. So they liked the photos and they wanted to do but they wanted an angle. And she's like, "You know the project, you write the article." And I was like, "Oh, alrighty." So I wrote most of it, and then she kind of like zhuzhed it up. But I think that was one thing that I wasn't prepared for, that I'll offer, that you might end up having to write your own article.
or at least
wild.
Or at least there's an extensive questionnaire. So I've had a lot of those where the designer, they just get like a pretty extensive questionnaire on it. But I also think something I have a kind of a list of PR people I refer designers to, because that's not something that we have under our umbrella. It's its own beast. I forgot where I was going with that.
PR people.
The PR people. Oh, and then so they'll also ask you, even before they reach out to an editor, what is the angle? And also what a lot of editors like to see is either the family in the space, or the designer and like the homeowner together. So when you can offer, because a lot of these publications, they're not going to pay to reshoot this, right? So it's all, a lot of it is pickup, unless it's like a main Architectural Digest or House Beautiful feature,
right?
Like everybody's picking it up. So we're kind of shooting in the dark a little bit, seeing where the project's gonna land, right? So I try to put that on people's radars, that like, we either need the family in there, we need the kids in there, we need a person, we need some people, we need some life.
A dog, a cat.
Exactly. Yep.
A baby.
But there's also a lot of opportunities for just even single like image placement too. So there's so many opportunities for like, oh, we need a green bathroom. We're doing a color story about this. We're doing a story about gray kitchens, you know. So there's also a lot of those opportunities where you can also get like kind of a roundup, like single image placement that can also be super beneficial, and you can still use it in your marketing. It's still published.
Right. And for those, I feel like that is a much more accessible point of being published, because I mean, I work on probably like one full house a year.
And then other things are like a few rooms.
Yeah,
Smaller.
it's like
Yep.
a couple, you know, a kitchen, couple bathrooms, a living room, you know what, like it's meeting my minimum, but it's, the magazines often want like a whole house project. Um,
Yeah.
so
For
I think
those main features, for sure.
yeah.
But I there's also a ton of opportunity for smaller placements. Like I have a kitchen I shot that's going to be in HGTV magazine next month. That, you know, it's like, it's just a kitchen. So, but it's like it's also keeping your ear to the ground for opportunities. It's
Yeah.
it's kind of nebulous. It's really, a PR is such a hard, like, there's no rules, kind of,
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting.
which is like not very helpful, but
And
What
I
do
think
you what do you recommend for designers who are like, you have your Instagram and you're taking photos and posting to your stories, and I love, and because I love Instagram in that regard. But I feel like some people think, oh, I shouldn't post this because then I won't be able to get into a magazine. Like,
oh,
how do you decide what to do?
um I usually say stories, just do it. Like,
Because they
they're not
disappear.
living, unless you put them in your highlights, they're not living there forever. Um and really, I think, if unless you're like a high influencer account,
Mhm.
if you just
Oh,
have a few
no.
hundred followers, like, you can, if it gets picked up, you can just delete it, and editors will just ask you to. Like, I had that
Oh, okay.
happen where I posted a photo of a designer's, and then, you know, 3 months later it got picked up, and then, you know, she's like, oh, do you mind deleting that off your
Oh,
room?
great.
And I was
Okay,
like,
so that's really important because I feel like I've heard a lot of designers say, "Oh, I'm not going to post this because then I won't." Da, da, da. And I'm always thinking, I'm not sure what the right answer is, but that can't be true.
I think, unless it's a certain, I hate saying it like this, unless it's a certain caliber of project that you think, it's more,
Right, right.
even with print, more so with print. Like, if you think there's going to be, you know, a 4-page spread of this project in Lux, or, you know, Architectural Digest, but, you know, then absolutely don't share them.
Yeah.
But I mean, I feel like for the regular, I don't like saying it that way, but
Mhm.
um you know, unless you're like 20,000 followers and you have a lot of press coming at you, then don't publish it. But if you're kind of starting out, and, you know, you can always, and they'll just ask you to delete it. It's not
Yeah,
like,
that's really good to know that that's how they handle that. I
yeah,
figured
especially for online publication too. Like, you know, something comes out in Rue, it's like, oh, okay, just delete those couple. Like,
great.
yeah, it's fine.
That's great. I'm so happy to hear
yeah.
that because I'm kind of passionate. People get stuck and not really using their Instagram. And so I always try to like recommend, like, post your design work. And sometimes that is one of the reasons. I'm like,
Right. Yeah,
or
I
I think
think,
what you told me was like, put it in your stories, but don't put it on your page. And that way,
yeah,
like visible and it's out there, but there's not really a record of it.
exactly. Yeah, I think I always say, like, stories are safe.
Mhm.
You know, it's, and, you know, showing even behind the scenes of a shoot is not the same as even posting like the finished photos. Like,
yeah, yeah,
you know, people like take videos of like my laptop screen, and, like, you know,
yeah,
none of that's retouch. That's not like the final thing. So, you know,
yeah.
you can still like get content from that. But I think
Right.
if you're really worried about posting, your PR team would guide you.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know I don't know if they still do this, but when we were inquiring about Architectural Digest, like they bring in their own stylist and their own photographer, and they would have reshot the entire, and the clients were like, no, they did not want to go through it again. So that would have been like another 4-day. It's quite invasive. I wouldn't even be there because I wouldn't have any say in how the accessories were placed or if they rehung the art or anything like that. And so in the end, that was just not on the table for them. And but I think, you know, if you are considering going for a publication like that, know that that's a possibility that you would need to you know, like reach out ahead of time. They still want, what's funny is you still have to shoot the project
Yeah.
and then you submit your photos with your professional photographer and then they go, yeah, I think we'll take it, but this is now our process. Quite fascinating.
Yeah, Architectural Digest does that. House Beautiful does that. I had something like that happen with Sunset, where the designer had moved the family out for a couple days, and we shot the whole thing. And they're like, "Yeah, we love it. We're gonna send our guy out there." And she, you know, it was like she had to do a whole another, you know, 2 days of. Luckily for her, like the clients were okay with it, but certain and I would say that's always for print is the reshoot because a lot of these magazines have very particular styling parameters at which, you know, we might not you know, lay people might, or even me, I'm not necessarily, I don't know what Veranda's like you know, styling guidelines are, so
yeah, do your best. Well, it's so good to know because we did an entire I think we did an entire episode on like accessorizing. I do think it is a second phase when you're working on a project. You don't think about the tissue box cover and wastebasket when you're designing the bathroom. You just don't, you know. So I always tell my brain like, okay, this is, you know, you need to have new energy and get this done because you're kind of feeling like, okay, we're done, right? Like
and I think the designer and the client can get like decision fatigue, spending fatigue. I mean, I hear that with the accessory stuff and even like art, like finishing art in the end can be really hard because there's just a lot of fatigue on especially the client's part, I think.
We've heard it from a photographer. We need to be motivated to do photo shoots. We were just talking to our friend who we will probably intro you, but she's taking photos herself. She's a designer and did like 3 bathrooms in a really nice house. And Andy and I were talking to her, oh, you know, we really consider like having a photographer. And so she's working her way up to it, but you can just see how it is hard for people mentally to get to that place where you are committed to having photography almost every time.
It's really, I really approach so many of my shoots. It's just like, it's really a celebration and just like a confirmation of the work that you guys do. It's like it can be like a very like validating process because it's like a lot of, especially on a designer's like first professional shoot, it's like they start seeing stuff come into the laptop and they're like, wow, that looks exactly like I envisioned it. Even if it's like, that's part of the skill of a photographer is like, I'm trying to interpret what you guys see and I'm sometimes manipulating what is, you know, actually in front of our eyes. And, you know, somebody sees it come into the laptop, they're like, oh, that looks just like amazing. I envisioned it, even though like they can't see it necessarily with their eyes. And it's a very like validating process too. And you're like, oh, I have so many people say, oh, okay, I can do that. Like this like looks legit. I'm legit. My work is legit. You know, it's like a little cycle of like affirming to yourself that like I accomplished this. I designed this. I executed it. And now it looks really fucking amazing. Sorry if I don't know if I can curse on this.
No, you curse.
You're good.
Do it all the time.
If you work with me, you'll hear the cursing. So
I heard the more successful you are, the more you swear.
Oh, I love that. I'll have to tell my daughter that.
I think that what's interesting because the Seattle project that you and I did together, There was some shoddy craftsmanship that happened. We still went ahead with the photo shoot because we weren't doing a lot of detail shots on certain places. But the client has now reached out and is in the process of, we're redesigning some of these things because the details matter to her, right? Like she's living in a $5.5 million house. I totally get it.
Mhm.
But it's funny because I sent her a picture of the kitchen and I was like, okay, so when I'm reimagining this, and she goes, first of all, my kitchen does not look like that. I go, well, that is your kitchen. Like that's what, and she goes, but it doesn't look like that to me. And it's just funny because it's one of those things where, you know, when you're in it day to day and you're living
Mhm.
it, like those photos actually carry magic, right? There's
Yeah.
something, my kitchen felt like that when I was in it. Like I would be delighted. Like what we did that day with the styling and then this and then that was great. She's like, but my everyday experience is actually not as magical as the photo. And I think that is something like we do want our work to feel special enough. Like I'm bringing value to a project, right? And I'm documenting that value with your
Mhm.
skills. And so that's the piece that, you know, I mean, I know that her house is lovely. It's, you know, everyone thinks it's amazing. And for her, it's like that grout line is different than this grout line and it's super noticeable. And it's the stuff she looks at every single day. And that we are not capturing that in a photo.
Exactly. And that's also like the kind of the most fun part of what I get to do is like I come into these spaces and I'm like, I just love design and like I, just appreciate so much of what you guys do. And I'm like, oh my gosh, whose tile is that? And who did your millwork? And like this millwork is beautiful. And like your cabinet, like I see those details
Stopping.
too. And I'm like, ooh, your cabinet maker is like really good. Like this is like good stuff. Cause I see like all
Range.
variations
Yeah.
of like craftsmanship. Um, but even if the craftsmanship isn't like top notch,
Yeah.
I still come in and I'm like, oh my gosh, I like see this vision you had for the kitchen island and like, and you guys have been like a lot of these time projects for years where you kind of have like maybe your blinders on and you're like kind of focused on these like on those like little details. And I come in and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I see your vision, like I get it. And so I try to make it like fun in that way where it's like
Yeah. Well, I feel like what you're
yeah.
saying is it's like transformative. And since we're coaching designers on their business, it feels like mentally, mindset wise, a photo shoot is a way for you to up level. Like it feels like, okay, I'm in a new spot now. Like, look at this. Like, look at what I've
Absolutely.
done. And as Andy says, brag about these accomplishments that you have had. It is important to remind yourself, like, I did this. Look at this is beautiful. Like, let's do 10 more of these in the next 2 quarters.
Right. Well,
Little,
and
smaller projects, but
when you're showing
it
photos,
is an up level, right?
yeah.
I think that's really nice the way you put that.
Well, and the goal of getting like your next client, like even if the space, like, yeah, so what the kick plate is missing for something, like, I can Photoshop that. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't negate what you got, like what the designer has done in the space, even if it's not perfect, which
There's always some outlet or something, and
there's always
you don't have to
something.
worry about that. They can take those out.
Lauren,
Yeah.
in your experience, like what, because, we do want to encourage people to get professional photos of their work. And again, like there is this huge movement of self-publishing, but I know that I'm not a good photographer. My artistic eye is tuned to other things. And when I am looking through my camera, Julie always laughs at me because I'm always like, I can edit it later. Whereas she is very careful about the original shot and the composition and all these other pieces. And so, in your experience, and I don't know if you can speak to this, but like how how important is it for designers to use professional photographs on their website? Via, I mean, on Instagram, I think it's fine to use snapshots and professional photos. Like, people want to see the process. We want to make sure that they understand who we are as a designer. So that's part of our branding. But I think on my website, like, I want professional photos. I do
Yeah,
not want
we need
my
both.
crappy iPhone photos on, and I only mine are crappy. I'm not saying everyone's are crappy, but I think that it, for me, I know it makes a difference, but I just want to, confirm, like, from your professional, not just because it's your business, but also like you are providing a service to someone who then is, I think, able to get more clients, right?
Mhm.
Yes, yeah. I would say kind of in the hierarchy, it's like portfolio is like number one, why you need professional photography, and you need a professional looking website that is easy to navigate. That's it.
That's it.
But the professional photo, like, you, for portfolio, it's like must. You have to. And then I would say kind of the second level is publication. If you want to get published, you got to have the professional photos. And then third would be like Instagram. Like, it's great to have professional photos on your Instagram, but again, like, you're doing, a handful of projects a year. You're not going to have like, professional photos every day or every week even to post.
Right.
So, I think Instagram's like, there's more wiggle room, there's more freedom. But for your website, you have to have photos that also reflect the client that you want, it for sure. So if you use a real estate photographer for a project and you don't like the photos, like, don't put them on your website, because it degrade. I think it degrades
Can't
like
downgrade your
what your
brand.
vision is for your business, right?
Yeah, you never want to do anything that dilutes your brand by aligning with something, which putting photos on your website is aligning with something.
Yeah.
What would you say to a newer designer? So, I mean, one, we have to have the clients, we've got to have the right projects, because I don't photograph everything. I get hired for a lot of stuff, but I don't photograph everything. But
Yeah.
what would you say to a up and coming or even an established designer? Like, how much of a marketing budget should somebody plan for in a year?
It's a good question.
I try to sort of organize it like by quarters, and that way you can think about, well, how much time do I have to get this done?
Right.
That's one way to look at it.
Right. I think, like, if you're thinking kind of about it in quarters, let's say, like, I would say, well, okay, here's kind of the scenario I'm thinking of, like a designer that, like, and I work with a lot of designers who are like at year like 5, and they're like, okay, like, I've just been getting referrals. I need to, like, they're like, that's like seems to be the time when a lot of designers are ready to like
Next.
level up,
And
right? And they really need to invest in the photos, because it's like they get referrals and referrals on referrals, but then it's like they try to get a new client and they don't have a website and they don't have any photo, and so then it's like they come to a screeching halt with new clients that aren't a referral. So I mean, I would say, like, to kind of start, like, if you're kind of starting from a just starting your website, your portfolio, like, if you could do like one full house and like a couple other rooms, or like a couple like half houses, or an ADU, or so I would say, like, if you could do like 4 photo shoots in a year, I feel like you could have a good
That's
base,
great. That's one
base
for your
a good base for your portfolio. And I mean, we've worked with designers on their websites, and they only have like their own home, and we just like make it work, so it's not, I'm not saying like it's impossible. But you need to have it, I would say, to kind of launch your site, either need to have like one full house project or like several smaller ones, so that people can see your kind of breadth, a little bit of the breadth of the work that you can do.
That's a great point. I love that.
So, I mean, I would say, like, and again, I'm just talking from like my budget, like what my rate card is, like budgeting like 7 to 10,000 over a year would get you like a lot of, from my perspective, get you a lot of content and portfolio imagery. So yeah.
I think it's a good starting point, because I think not only are they struggling with budgeting and having that money allocated, but I also actually think it's more of a challenge of their time, a designer's time to get it together and do the styling. It's always sort of like a time thing. I think that's the hardest part that I personally experienced.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah,
think
styling
is nice, because then I'm like thinking, okay, I got that one done for this quarter. If a quarter is 3 months, then I could start planning it and then do it the next month. And then the third month you're recovering, and then you do repeat. And so maybe that's helpful too. So I think that's a good amount of money for them to put on their budgets yearly.
Yeah, I feel like that's realistic and will get you like far.
Yeah.
From again, my budget, like what I charge.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I think that's helpful for people to sort of, I mean, we always are pushing for people to include photo shoot budget in their overall design fee, because where is that going to come from, right? Like it's either coming out of the profit, or you're building it in as part of the profit, and then it's moving into a marketing budget, right? So if I know that I'm to photograph this bathroom and this kitchen from this project, then I'm going to allocate a couple grand, either added to the design or pulled out, and I'd rather add it.
Yeah, exactly.
I think if you do like $3,000, you kind of cover your costs.
Yeah. Because then you do have the styling component, and that's not always something that the client wants to. I mean, again, like when we worked on a couple of those projects, I styled everything, and then people they like walk around, how much is this and how much is this and how much is this, and then sort of like you just give them a price list and they go, okay, I'll take that, but not this and this and not that, and and you just sort of like whittle it down, and then you have to schlep everything away, and so that's another chunk of time.
Yeah, and I mean, I will say kind of, well, and in that vein, I really, the value of a stylist on these shoots can really, it really can take a lot off of a designer's plate. I know it's like a line of an expense, but I mean, just the amount of schlepping.
Yes.
Yeah. And like, the stylists we work with, like they will like do all these beautiful florals, and like we bring everything, and like the designer maybe has like one carload of stuff they're bringing from their house, and it just like, and like the stylist like takes pictures before she like before like you move everything, like, and then we put everything back, and so like that's a big part of the process. It's like, okay, we got to put all the shit back in the kitchen. Where did the coffee maker go? And so like that's also what a stylist does, and then it really frees up the designer to like partner with me a little more, because we're more focused on like the composition and like what's coming out of the camera and looking at the laptop, and like the designer's not worried about styling the next bathroom.
And also the designer can have their picture taken, and so you don't feel fatigued having to put everything back.
And like we bring all the florals from the San Francisco flower market, and we're like texting in the morning, and we're like we try to pick out those like unique things that like Leah, our stylist, and I, like, we just know that like the camera's gonna like love this, Yeah.
That's wonderful. Yeah, you guys are very talented.
When a designer hires your stylist and you as a team, are you in communication with them about what it is they're looking for, or do you really take over that process? Like
the stylist is always part of the pre-shoot call. So that's Leah, or we've worked with a couple other stylists. Yeah, so there she's always a part of the, and that's when we'll like go through our shot list and kind of look at the accessories that we need to bring. I'm like, okay, I'm bringing like two bins of like killer coffee table books, and like I'm bringing
Yeah.
these vessels, and like you know, we need like a little oil painting here, and so like we'll bring that. So you know, we really get into the nitty gritty when we do that pre-shoot
great.
call. And if there's a stylist on the shoot, then she's definitely a part of that, and she's like clued in to like what we're doing way before. And I will also say stylists do beds really well.
They do what?
Beds,
Beds. Making a bed.
making a bed.
Oh, beds. Yeah, wow, that's a really good point.
It is.
'Cause that's so difficult.
It's so difficult, and like
Oh my
Leah
gosh.
comes in there with a steamer, and like a lot of the stylists that work in San Francisco, you know, work for Pottery Barn and Restoration Hardware, and they're really, really skilled.
Yeah, exactly.
At fabrics and like soft products. And I feel like Leah's done some beautiful beds for us where it's like just like that perfect amount of messy, or we do like the really sleek, like really sleek, like European style. But like that shit takes a lot
That's almost
of
like
steaming.
make or break.
I can't like if you have a killer bedroom, you really want the bed to look really good.
That could be the difference between you getting published.
Oh, it's so true.
Absolutely.
If you don't make your beds properly or get really good at it yourself.
Yep. I think I was asking you like, how do you like to style a throw? And you go, I just throw it. Which may not be true anymore, but it does. I mean, I think that those are details and tricks of their trade that maybe designers don't always know. And so I think I remember a long time ago, our old design director brought Scotch tape and like taped all the pillowcases so that it didn't like come out, and there's just all these things, and I was like, wait, you want me to do what? And she's like, tape this up.
Yeah, that's super common. They do all that kind of stuff with the beds.
And that's what a stylist brings, is like the experience of like, okay, we need some blue tape here, we're gonna do this with this throw. And also something I would say about being published, well, whether you have a stylist or not, like no creases and things, like you're gonna be steaming or ironing like tea towels, bath towel, like like that. And but that's also the extra eye that a stylist brings, because it's like I'm kind of concentrating on like getting the overall, encompassing the design, and like making sure the composition is right and the lighting is right, and it's like
the lighting is so important.
Exactly. And then like the stylist is like, oh, I see this wrinkle at the side of the bed, or like she drapes the like side, the drape of the bedspread a certain way, and it's like, I can't do everything, and a lot of times the designers can't, like
they don't even
like
see it.
Any
they don't even
set,
see it until the photo's done. Yeah, there's always like a wrinkle in the rug or a wrinkle on one of the sofa cushions that you see after the fact, and I can always tell that designer didn't think about it.
And it's like as photographers, like you try to like catch all of that, but it's also like I can't see every wrinkle, like. And so when there's a stylist, it's like she's like my little like guardian angel.
It helps
like
have two people, like, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then what would we budget for a stylist? Is it an additional, like, is it 1.5 times a photo shoot, or?
I would say, so typically they'll charge between 1,000 and like 1,200 a day.
Okay.
And so that's kind of how we structure it. And then we just charge like our wholesale floral costs, because we have like our badge or whatever. So yeah, that's kind of the budget. And then if there's like a lot of shopping and returning, that might be an additional day. But again, like we're bringing a lot of like unique pieces we've collected and thrifted and bought for shoots. And we're, it's like, I got all the clear vases you could ask for, so it's, we're also like bringing that sort of thing. And also like unique pieces. So
Yeah, that makes a
so-
huge difference.
Yeah, I mean, we have a shoot coming up where we're trying to like rent some big planters for like the outside of this pool house. So like things like that, or like a furniture rental, like that will be an additional charge, but we don't make any money off that. It would just be like whatever it is.
But it's good to know
Yeah.
that that's available, because sometimes there's some object like that where you don't know how to get it.
Yeah, and it can be tricky, and we have a good relationship with a few people we can borrow things from. Yeah, as well as just kind of like our network of people.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, Lauren, it's such a pleasure talking to you.
Yes,
I
as
feel like
always.
this was really helpful.
Right.
Well, I
And
think that
we do
service
these
that-
like quarterly workshops, Lauren, and so
Mhm.
sometimes we like to go back in a new quarter and create another episode. And I think something like photography or even social media might be good way to continue the conversation with you.
Yeah, totally. I could talk about this for hours, so I'm here.
we've been talking for an hour, so thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you guys. This was fun.
Thank you so much, because it really is such a service that you're
Yeah.
providing. And it really does make such a big difference. I think, as you were saying, like the level of clients that you're able to attract is really the main component of this. And I think as we're working with a lot of designers that are just starting out. And so getting them into the brain space, like it's not a hobby, it's a business, and that this is just
Yeah.
another part of the business that has to be attended to, is really a key component to their success. So thank you for
I really try to
Yeah,
make
exactly.
it fun too. I don't like it breaks my heart when like designers are like, oh, I just hate photo shoot days, and I'm just like dreading it, or I'm really like, if just depending on personalities and things, but I really try to make like shoot days like fun and celebratory and like exciting, that like we're gonna be like getting you these like great like images, and like look what you did. So
Yeah.
I feel like if you're dreading a photo shoot, maybe it's not the right photographer. And
Yeah,
always make sure they're tethered.
I know, right? So true.
That's good advice. All right.
Yeah.
Well, we will post in our Instagram where our designers can find you.
Yep.
And thank you so much for being a part of Under the Fringe, because we love peeking under all the things that are related to design. And this is definitely one part that we don't want to skip.
I'm here whenever you guys need me.
Thanks, Lauren.
Great. We'll take you up on that.
Okay.
Have a great one.
You too. Have a good weekend. Bye.
Thanks for listening and being part of our community. Speaking of community, please head over to our website and sign up for podcast alerts and blog posts. And if you're looking for more resources to up-level your business, create more time in your schedule, and improve your profits, we have a blueprint for your success that covers mindset, systems, business, teams, and tools. Think of us as your unaccredited university. Visit us at under-the-fringe.com and tune in next week for our next deep dive on creating more freedom and less struggle.